Hey guys, it's me Kevin and I'm back with another AFL video, and next Friday the AFL Women's competition starts. So today I'm going to be going through my ladder prediction for the 2019 AFL Women's. In 14th spot will be Brisbane, losing a lot of first choice players to the Gold Coast Suns, as well as that shocking scoreless outing in their last preseason match against the Giants, who I think will be low on the ladder as well. Does not make a good look for Brisbane. And in my opinion, with both Brisbane and Gold Coast having to use Queensland's talent pool, I don't think there are enough talent to support both teams in Queensland. So I think it was a pretty shocking move from the AFL Women's to expand to the Gold Coast. But I think, based on what I saw of the two performances the other week, I think Brisbane will be the worst of the two. And that means in 13th spot would be Gold Coast. For similar reasoning, two teams sharing the same talent from Queensland, which I don't think there's enough of. But I rank Gold Coast higher because I feel like they're a new team, and I feel like they'll be a lot more competitive compared to a hampered Brisbane side. Essentially, Gold Coast don't have much to lose. But in my opinion, I would be very surprised if one of the two bottom teams is not from Queensland. So I think a Queensland team will be finishing last. And 12th spot is on other non-AFL state team, and that is GWS. They're already very short on talent, and losing Amanda Farrugia in a shock announcement has just made the Giants worse. I think their home ground might save them a few games, but overall, I don't see the Giants finishing anywhere near what they did in 2018. I think 2019 will be a reflection of what 2020 will be looking like for them. In number 11th will be St Kilda. I do rate their list a little bit, and they did have a pretty good season in the VFL Women's, finishing top of the ladder, but not being able to win the premiership. However, as an expansion side, I feel like when they get into the proper competition, I do feel like it will take a little bit of time for them to form properly. Their other issue is that they're in the harder conference, Conference B. Teams like Melbourne, Carlton, Collingwood, and Freo, I think it will be a tough season for St Kilda to get many wins off the board, but I do think they'll be very competitive. I don't like putting Richmond above St Kilda in 11th, but the only reason why I did is because Richmond have virtually free wins against Gold Coast, Brisbane, and the Giants, which might actually help Richmond. And again, like St Kilda, they seem to be pretty good in the VFL Women's, and they do have some good players like Katie Brennan, Monique Conti, and Frederick, to say some. But I do think Richmond will, again, like St Kilda, take some time to form properly, and I think they'll get hampered to Adelaide, North Melbourne. So yeah. Beg your pardon, that was meant to be 10th, I forgot the rankings. But number 9 will be West Coast. Their home ground advantage will help, and I think teams will stumble at Lafayette Park due to the travel. But I don't think West Coast will have a very good record away from home, which will ultimately cost the Eagles, in my opinion. And also, given that they're a team that has to form, like all the other expansion sides, I think they'll do some winning late, but I think they'll have a slow start, and that's why I think they'll be 9th. 8th will be Geelong. They've got a few really easy games, but then they've also got a few hard conference games, and I do think Geelong is one of those sides that still needs to have a lot of work done with them, but I think due to their easier conference, I do think Geelong will be able to make the finals. Now, it's unfair because they finished 8th, but due to the teams in Conference A, I think they'll be making the finals, so a bit unfair, but yeah. I do think the Bulldogs will shock a few people in number 7th. I did see a few of their preseason games, and they posted scores of above 50, which is a sign that under their new coach, they'll be playing some exciting footy, but yeah, the Bulldogs have a hard fixture, like most teams from Conference B, and I do not, and because of how inexperienced their side is, I don't think they will be making finals, but they will definitely have some really good games, in my opinion. Number 6 is Collingwood. Again, the hard conference will cost them, but coming off a VFL Women's Premiership, and AFL Women's Wooden Spoon, so two opposites there, I do think Collingwood will be quite competitive coming off that premiership, but in my opinion, they do seem the weaker side out of the likes, compared to the likes of Freo, Carlton, Melbourne, and some of the others, and that's why I think Collingwood will only finish 6th. In 5th place will be Carlton. They did lose Vesio in a shock move, so that will be a little bit intriguing to see what happens with them, and that will help Collingwood. But I do think a great home ground advantage, and I think I do rate their list still, so I think they will just skim into the Conference B finals. Number 4 will be Fremantle, mainly due to their home ground advantage, and given that a lot of teams will stumble at Freo Oval, in my opinion. But like the Eagles, I think the Dockers will have a woeful away record, and I don't think they'll be nearly as good as last year, given that they've lost some really good players like Dana Hooker and Melissa Caulfield, for example. So I think the Dockers going to have a bit of a form slump, but I think an easy home ground advantage will save them. And number 3rd spot is Melbourne. With the likes of Pearce and O'Day in the midfield, I think that Melbourne will be a force to be reckoned with and will top Conference B. But given the teams they have to play, I don't think they'll be able to dominate to the extent of what Adelaide or North Melbourne will be able to do. Number 2 is Adelaide. Well, they seem to be the most exciting team in the competition and absolutely ripped the game apart last year. But one thing will cost them, and that has been their injury crisis. I do think Adelaide, given the way they play, will still be a very hard team to beat, and they've probably got the deepest list in the competition, considering they're the only team in South Australia, which is actually a footy-rich state. I personally would have introduced Port Adelaide over Gold Coast. I would have expanded to the power. But anyway, it seems like Adelaide will make another top 2 spot with a great game plan and great list depth. I think Adelaide will be in the top 2. And number 1 is North Melbourne. I was initially going to rate him 2nd, but the Adelaide injury crisis decided that North Melbourne might have better season on percentage than the Crows. And Adelaide's only game of the loss of the season will be to the Kangaroos. That's the way I rated it. I do think the Kangaroos have got a lot of easy games, and they've got a very good team, probably one of the best midfields, one of the best teams in general, and they were probably the second best side last year until that quote-unquote elimination final shocker to the Dockers. But I think North Melbourne will bounce back to win top Conference A. So in the elimination finals, I'm predicting Fremantle to easily encounter for Geelong at home, and for Adelaide to comfortably beat Carlton at their home ground as well. In the semi-finals, I'm predicting North Melbourne to beat Fremantle in Tassie, whilst I think there'll be an upset. Well, not really an upset, but more of like a home ground shocker, with Adelaide beating Melbourne in Melbourne to make the grand final. So I think the grand final will be between North Melbourne and Adelaide. Now, where do they host it? Because the MCG and Marvel Stadium are both unavailable. So do they host it in Tasmania, in Bloodstone Arena, or do they decide to host it at Icon Park if North Melbourne make the grand final? Actually, that's a good point. Why on earth did you play a game on Saturday in the AFL, both Marvel and the MCG, when you have the women's grand final? Because I would personally help the grand final at Marvel Stadium. You saw the interest of the Crows last year at Adelaide Oval, and you probably see something similar in Melbourne. But anyway, I think it'll be a very good game, but I think North Melbourne, due to having a more fit squad, will take out their maiden AFL Women's Premiership. Sorry this review was a little bit rushed and probably a little bit lacking depth, but I did rush this video to try and get a video out due to the end of the week, and I haven't exactly been keeping track of a lot of AFL Women's news. I have read it every now and then, what the predictions are and how the teams are going, but I do watch it during the season, but I don't really pay much attention to the articles, so yeah, that's why it's a little bit threadbare. But I hope you enjoyed this video nonetheless, and please give it a thumbs up, please subscribe, and check out some of my other videos, and I'll see you next week. Bye.